Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Got an awesome little show for you guys and gals this morning on January 17th. We got some playoff football today. Obviously, going to dive into some Packers news, get everybody set for that football slate. And really what we're going to cover this morning, the latest on Matt LaFleur, is Adam Schefter just put another tweet out. I know many people look at it like, oh, he's just saying the same thing. This feels a little different to me. I'll explain why. Also, we're going to be hitting on Packers that are set to hit free agency, right? We already kind of started going down the list. We're going to talk about Sean Ryan. And it seems like everybody's kind of mixed on whether they want to bring Sean Ryan back or not. I'm going to dive into the deep analytics and stats, kind of show you guys how he performed stacked up against other centers. Sometimes it's easy to just watch the Packers and go, he looked pretty good. And then when you compare him across the league, you go, we could probably do better, right? We'll talk about whether we believe he's the right choice for the center position or if we need to move on at the price that the market is set. Also, we're going to talk about Packers that are on the chopping block. We're going to now press into that aspect of the offseason. So, again, we got all this coaching carousel stuff going on. We're going to bring you the breaking news as it hits. We got the re-signing contracts. Obviously, we need to get these players under contract if we want them back. You know, we've mentioned people like Rasheed Walker, Romeo Dobbs, Malik Willis, Quay Walker. Now Sean Ryan will be talked about. So we got all that up in the Patreon group. And you'll notice I'm adding this info to the Patreon article, so you guys will have everything right there in an orderly fashion as the news comes in. And then also potential cut/restructure. So the players that are under contract for 2026 and beyond, are there players there that we need to get rid of to free up cap or maybe restructure a contract? We're going to talk about a big one today. And boy, this is going to spark a lot of conversation, I'm sure. Rashawn Gary. Ooh, people either love him or they hate him. It feels like the large majority of the Packer fan base, for whatever reason, hates him. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of potentially bringing him back, not at his current cap hit, I promise you that. But before we get into it, if you would, do that YouTube stuff for me. Hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your day. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you talking Packers on a daily basis. So if you are looking for that type of content, make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you never miss out on a future live stream. Let's get into it. The latest on the Matt LaFleur saga, the contract extension. Are they going to trade him? Everything's on the table, as Rob Domofsky said yesterday. Here is the latest from Adam Schefter. Now, again, I know many people, I've seen it in the chat already, trying to think of who it was. And I'm not calling you out, okay? Don't take this the wrong way. But many people believe like Blake does right here. Schefter needed his morning clicks by reheating these leftovers and tweeting them out. LOL. Any excuse to get in here and talk ball, though. That's a good point on the latter, Blake. You know, they could say that. Trying to think of something stupid to say here. I really ain't got much. They could say that the Green Bay Metro trash truck ran into a dumpster at Lambeau, and we get on here and talk about it, right? We love our Packers. So that's a fair point. However, I've said from the get-go, as soon as this started to kind of go off the rails a little bit with the contract negotiation, at least in the fans' eyes, behind the scene, guys, listen, we all need to accept that behind the scenes at 1265 Lombardi, this may have been a non-issue the entire time. That could have been the case, right? We're trying to read the tea leaves and see which way is it going to go. Adam Schefter, in my opinion, the majority of his reporting on this has probably come from Matt LaFleur's agent's camp, okay? And then again, Ian Rappaport, have we seen him say anything on this? We haven't, right? So Ian typically will give you the information from the team. Not that Schefter don't have sources in the building. Obviously he does, right? But again, this kind of felt like the whole time that this was Matt LaFleur's camp going, hey, here's kind of where we're at. I know I could get a top 5 position anywhere in the league as a head coach, right? They consider me a top 5 head coach, not anywhere in the league, but obviously you know what I'm saying. People around the league view him as a top 5 coach, whether we do or not as fans. That's the reality of the market. So I think he kind of puts that out there to go, hey, here's where we're at. This ain't a done deal. And what that does is in the public eye, it puts a little pressure on the organization. All of a sudden, the poll questions start going out. And the poll questions are saying anywhere from 65% to, 85%. And in some cases, 90%, the fan base wanted Matt LaFleur back. Now, if you read the YouTube comments, you think it's the opposite. That's why we always do the poll questions, just to make sure, because sometimes it feels like it's swayed in a different direction than it actually is. But here is the tweet. The Green Bay Packers are working to bring back head coach Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst, each of whom is headed into the last year of his current deal. And the expectation is that there will be contract extensions for both, league sources told ESPN. So not only did he mention Matt LaFleur, he mentions Goody, right? This kind of feels like this report's coming from Lambeau now. So to me, many people will see this and say, this ain't nothing, Clayton. But for me, what I see here is this is kind of a way to go, hey, guys, everybody settle down. It's getting done. Now, the last few days, everyone who's reported on it, you notice the lingo has been more along the lines of they're closer to getting the deal done than they're not. Essentially, it's more likely, that's how I've seen this reported too, it's more likely he will be back, Matt LaFleur will be back, rather than not be back, right? So, and Josh Martin, this is in the chat, says this, and I completely understand where you're coming from, Josh. Is it me, or the longer this goes on, the less chance I feel LaFleur comes back? I feel the opposite. I kind of felt like the longer it goes on now, it's just more about the details. Now, the part that bothers me is now it feels like we might just kind of stand pat with the coordinators and everything we got, right? Which, what am I saying? There's been people in the building saying that they love everybody, not just Matt LaFleur. Everyone in the building loves Rich Bisaccia. Whether we agree with it or not, that's the report coming out of there. Where did the report come from? Who leaked that information out? Was there influence behind it that, hey, we want to, just get this information out there to brace the public that Bisaccia's coming back? Who knows, right? Maybe Bisaccia's going to be let go and that report was inaccurate, right? We'll find out in due time. But again, when you kind of look at everything here, I feel like the longer it goes on now, they're not as antsy to, we need to get a replacement in here, right? So head coach is going to be intact. And also the Mike McDaniel front. This is the part that's been concerning for me the entire time, was like, I want to see a change at the offensive line room, okay, in terms of, both personnel and coaches. We'll talk about Sean Ryan here in a second. But when it comes to the offensive line coach, Coach Butkus, I think you can do much better. I mean, you can't spend that much money on your center and Elton Jenkins and him not just be absolutely dominant, okay? You can't go out in free agency and spend, the money that you did on Aaron Banks, although it's not as bad as many people make it out to be. Go spend all that money on Aaron Banks to play left guard and him play as bad as he did. You can't have Rasheed Walker, a fourth-year starter, whether he's a seventh-round pick or not, committing stupid-ass penalties down the stretch when the game's on the line, right? You can't have, your first-round pick in Jordan Morgan, underperforming, although here's where I push back on Butkus more than Morgan. We've seen him at tackle. Jordan Morgan looked good at tackle. He graded out well at tackle, graded out in the 70s in the tackle position. Guys, that grades out higher than Rasheed Walker, and we were asking Morgan to bounce around a little bit, right? Well, what did he grade out like at guard? Exactly. Why are we playing him at guard? Who makes that decision? You guessed it, Adam Stenavich and Coach Butkus. Now, how much say does Coach Butkus have in the starting five? Is it Adam Stanovich's final call? I can't imagine Matt LaFleur is very involved in that. And maybe you knock Matt LaFleur for that. I completely understand. But for me, I would like to see Adam Stanovich demoted, right, to Butkus's job. If you want to keep Butkus on staff to be a helper or whatever, listen, I have no problem with that. I have no personal issues with Coach Butkus. I just know this offensive line has went backwards since he took over as offensive line coach. And it's either his fault, Adam Stanovich's fault, or it's Brian Gutekunst's fault. I don't know how that falls at the feet of Matt LaFleur when you've got three people. You got one pick in the talent, which I think we would agree swing and a miss on Aaron Banks, at least as it sits right now. And then the move of Elton Jenkins back to center, that didn't seem to work out as good as we all planned, or I had hoped. I know I talked about in the offseason, like, hey, this gives me a lot of hope for the center position that Elton could play, center and up his game a little bit in that regard. But I don't know. It's just it's a tough look all the way around. But in the article, just to dive a little deeper, let's make sure there's nothing in there that we're missing on here that might be a little bit more detailed. In the article from Schefter, it says they're working to bring back Matt LaFleur, general manager, blah, blah, blah. The Packers continue talking with both LaFleur and Gutekunst this weekend. It kind of felt like that too. Like we were maybe expecting a decision on Matt LaFleur before the weekend. Maybe this is a way to kind of bridge the gap. Like, hey, nobody panic. We're getting the deal done. They're going to be back, both of them. Okay. Sources told ESPN they would be surprised if the Packers don't complete extensions with both LaFleur and Gutekunst. Packers president Ed Policy, LaFleur, and Gutekunst were spotted together Thursday night at the American Club in Kohler, Wisconsin. They discussed the future and all are working to get something done to keep the trio intact. So they were spotted out at dinner. Notice it didn't say them with their agents. That's a pretty good sign. Now, you guys will remember the last time a deal got done with an extension for both Goody and LaFleur, it didn't get leaked out. I can't remember how long it was, but I remember the reporters being like, yeah, they don't have to announce it. So we had no idea that the deal got done. This seems like it's a little bit too much in the mainstream media to go under the radar, if that makes sense. But they were out at dinner, just the three of them. It didn't mention anything about, like I said, the agents. Policy said in June that he would prefer not to have a lame duck coach. We've talked about that extensively. It talks about Matt's record. That's pretty much it. So that's the latest news, is that those three were spotted out at dinner at the American Club in Kohler, Wisconsin. Okay, so to me, what this says is the deal's getting done. So now we can put that on the back burner. Now, back to Mike McDaniel, the point I was trying to make before we move on to talking some roster here, which is probably why most people are here. You probably got the Matt LaFleur fatigue. Hell, I know you are tired of hearing it. I'm tired of talking about it, to be honest with you. But with the Mike McDaniel situation, what if he already reached out to Mike McDaniel and he said, hey, man, go see if you can get a head coaching job, right? That's the top priority. Mike McDaniel's going to take any head coaching job that he gets offered that's decent money. I think we would all agree. And he has interviewed for several spots. He's also interviewed for several OC spots. Well, why hasn't he interviewed in Green Bay? There's not a vacancy at the moment. And until everything gets done here with Matt LaFleur, you probably don't want to send that signal to Adam Stenavich, because now he becomes disruptive and comes in. Hey, I want to know where I'm at on my contract. All that comes into play, right? And listen, we talk about these coaches like they're not humans, right? I want to be very clear. Like, Steno's got a family. I want to say he's got, like, I can't remember, it's either 3 or 4 kids, right? And I know there's a portion of the fan base, I don't give a rat's ass, Clayton. This is a business. I got you. But if there's people's family involved here, if you ever lost a job or you've ever had a family member lose a job, that is not a fun feeling. To have to go home to your wife, to your kids, and say, I wasn't good enough to get it done to be able to provide for you guys, that's a tough. I don't care what your profession is. That sucks. So if we can kind of curb that a little bit from the get him out of here, he's trash, blah, blah, blah. That stuff drives me crazy, just being honest. And if I'm too soft and this ain't the show for you, I get it, man. There's plenty of podcasts out there. But I just try to look at it through the eyes of the person a little bit too. So maybe you don't want to go out in the public eye like, oh, does that mean Steno's getting cut? He's getting cut loose? You want those conversations to take place behind the scenes. But Matt and Mike McDaniel are such good friends. I could also see it being something like they've already talked. Hopefully that's the case. I'm not reporting that. All right, don't go to Twitter and say Clayton said he's already talked to Mike McDaniel. That is not true, that I know of. But I'm just saying I would not take him off the table if you're potentially thinking he might be the OC. And I'm glad to see most people agree with that take, man, because, again, there's a lot of tough people out there. I do notice that the people that agree with takes like that, when it comes to, like, actually having a heart towards people that might be losing their job and whatnot, they typically get their names attached to accounts. The ones that try to act tough and it's a could care less, it's Hambubger789 over on Twitter. You know what I mean? You never know who they are. They don't have their picture in the profile. It's just some rando out there spewing hate and nonsense. So, and B. Timmy says Clayton has sources. Yeah, I've got sources. I seen the kicker talk in here. The sources I've got is in this house is my wife downstairs still giving me hell that Haversick should have been the kicker all year, and I'm tired of hearing about it, okay? So, absolutely, Nick McSwain, internet tough guys are cringe. It really is, man. But, again, try not to give them too much publicity here. If you guys are watching this video back later, let me know in the comments, how do you feel about the latest on Matt LaFleur? Do you agree with me that that's a good sign that just the 3 of those without their agents were out? Maybe the deal's already done and we don't know about it yet. Maybe there's already a handshake agreement and now they're talking about, all right, where are we going for the future? I think this is good news. Ed Policy, Matt LaFleur, Brian Gutekunst sitting down having dinner together without the agents. I think that's great news. So let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future live streams like this one. All right, let's switch gears and let's get back to our topic of Packers hitting free agency. A little bit of roster talk here, okay? And this is going to be centered around our boy Sean Ryan. Now, before I start to do the offseason deep dive stuff, what I'll typically do is I'll kind of write down how I feel about a player. Going into this breakdown, the way I feel about Sean Ryan is I kind of feel like he did a good job this year, right? No one was going into this season expecting Sean Ryan to be your starting center. Now, obviously, Elton Jenkins goes down with the injury, and I'm expecting the whole thing to come unraveled. It wasn't great, don't get me wrong, but I came out of this year feeling a little bit better about Sean Ryan. That's before I dove into the stats, the pressure rates, the analytics, all that, right? Just kind of a feel watching every game this year and every snap multiple times. I didn't feel like Sean Ryan was a huge weak spot on the offensive line. Now, I think we would all agree the offensive line played like garbage in the run game, okay? So you got to now start to differentiate between all of these offensive linemen. What did they do well? What did they do not so well? So let's talk about Sean Ryan. And again, he's set to hit free agency. We're going to talk about what he did statistically. We're going to talk about the market value attached to him as well, according to Spot Track. You guys go do your own research at other sites if you have more trust in those. I like Spot Track. I think they do a good job. All right, offensive grade, according to PFF, 59.2. Now, again, whether you think that's a good grade, bad grade, or whatnot, I compare it across the league. You can't just take these grades, right, and say, well, 60 is good, or this. I like to take it a level deeper and go, all right, how does that stack up against everybody else in the league? Because it's one thing to just settle for a certain performance. It's another thing to go, okay, can we do better? You're either getting better or you're getting worse in anything that you do in sports, right? So offense grade 59.2. He was the 31st highest graded center in the league. I'm sorry, it's too important of a position. Again, if PFF is everything, and we're not saying that, we'll get into some other aspects of the analytics and see if that's maybe too high or too low of a grade compared to what the stats say in terms of pressure rate, things like that, success rate, all that. But 59.2, the 31st highest graded center, it's a position of tier 2 importance for me. I break the positions down into tiers, okay? And there's tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 being this is the highest priority on the roster. Tier 1 is quarterback, tackle on offense, and then on defense, it's edge and 3-tech, the pass rushing 3-tech defensive tackle opposite of your stud wide 9, 7, 5, whatever you want to call it, edge defender, okay? So those are the 4 positions. It's really 5 because you include both tackles nowadays, where the common trend in the NFL now is to put, since the team, 15 years ago, teams were putting their best tackle at left tackle. So what teams started doing is they evolved and started putting their best pass rusher, for the most part, not every team does it, but put their best pass rusher over the right tackle, knowing that's a weaker spot, right? So now I feel like both tackle positions are equally important in my opinion, although if you had to choose, the tiebreaker would go to the blind side, right-handed quarterback, left tackle, left-handed quarterback, right tackle, okay? So those are tier 1. Tier 2 on offense, center. That's my tier 2 position of importance. And you're going, wait, so receiver isn't as important, is as important as center? I'm not saying it's not as important, but if I had to choose between the 2 positions, you can go get a stud center or a stud wide receiver. A defense can take that receiver away like that. They can bracket cover him. They can play bullseye. They can shade a 6 to his side, even whether it's the field side or the boundary. There's a lot of things. They can play lock on him. They can do a lot of different things, right? I think when you hear me say lock has always been described to me as a zone man hybrid defense, meaning you'll have one guy in man coverage on this guy and everybody else is playing a particular zone. The problem is that one guy who's playing man, the zone he would have attacked, you take that out of the equation. Therefore, a team can wash the defense out on one side and attack underneath if that guy was going to play a curl flat or a hook curl or whatever it may be, right? Because now he's locked up on that receiver. Understand all that. You could take them out of the game plan. But if you don't have a center that can keep the pressure out of the pocket, out of the lap of your quarterback, you are screwed. I mean, you're absolutely screwed. Hell, just look at how teams set the protection. They always say the top priority is interior out. What does that mean? If you leave a free runner, it better be coming as far away from the quarterback as possible. You have a better chance of having a free runner off the edge and the quarterback being able to ID him and go, okay, I got him, don't worry about him, as opposed to people rushing up the middle. If you've got a free rusher through the A gap, you're screwed, right? So you want your one of your most important pieces to be the center position. 31st is not good enough, guys. It's just not. It isn't. Just like Josh Myers wasn't good enough. Now, whether you think Josh Myers is a better center than Sean Ryan, it makes a hill of beans to me. I think we'd all agree Josh Myers is not a top 15 center. He's not a top 10 center. Pass block grade for Sean Ryan, 42.4. Run block grade, 65.6. So he was one of the few offensive linemen we had this year that actually played the run fairly well, right? That's what the numbers suggest. Now, so when you look at the centers, 31st graded center, here's some of the names that are attached here, right? That kind of come into play. Now, notice Elton Jenkins is 24th at 62.0, Sean Ryan 59.2. So now you got to ask yourself, what's Sean Ryan worth? Spoiler alert, he's worth the market's saying $6 million. Now, will he get 10? Will he get 12? I don't know. But I know this. If it comes down to bringing Elton Jenkins back, right, on a edited contract, if you will, or Sean Ryan at 6 to 10 million, I would probably side with Elton Jenkins. And you're going Clayton, his cap hit is 24.8 million. Yes, it is. But the dead cap attached is only 4 million. You can free up 20 million if you cut him outright. Yes, you can. You can also a lot of maneuverability to do a huge restructure. If he's not willing to do that, he's not willing to do that. But the point is, I am not choosing Sean Ryan as my starting center. Now, that doesn't mean we don't want him back, right? You'll sign him back as a good foundational piece, not foundational piece, a good backup plan at center. I think there's a lot of value in there. If you can get me Sean Ryan for $6 million, which means the cap hit will probably be around $4 million the first year, that's worth it to have a guy who's played guard. He's played center, a lot of center this year, and he didn't crap the bed playing center. It's just not the ideal situation. So if I had to choose between the two, I'm probably cutting Elton Jenkins loose if he won't take a huge pay cut, and I don't think he will. I'm cutting him loose, freeing up $20 million. I would re-sign our boy Sean Ryan for $6 million per on average. I would go that route. You get up to 10, and I'm going, I don't know about that, guys. So again, PFF isn't everything. Let's look at some of the efficiency numbers here, okay? So pass blocking efficiency, a PFF signature stat measuring pressures allowed on a per snap basis with weighting towards sacks allowed, okay? So again, it kind of takes everything and comes up with a grade for them essentially, right? So Sean Ryan's was a 96.9 efficiency grade, okay? That is 41st best amongst all centers in the NFL, okay? Keep in mind, too, you're going, okay, well, how many snaps did those guys play? Minimum 100 snaps. This is why I get pissed at PFF sometimes, because the grades are suggesting, well, he's 31st best, right? Well, you look at their efficiency rating, and he's 41st. How can it be that bad? How can it be that far off? That makes no sense, right? Again, what it tells me is you got multiple slappies grading the tape and coming up with these numbers, and they're not communicating with each other. Well, what about this? To me, if I was working at PFF, I'd go, hold up a minute, guys, something's off here. He's 41st in efficiency, but we got him 31st in PFF grade. How about we meet in the middle somewhere and just rank him 35th, right? Rather than give him that 31st grade. So that's a little bit misleading in my opinion. But with that being said, 41st, that's even lower than the 31st ranking, okay? He's 46th in pressures allowed, according to PFF. Again, they don't attach the tapes. Take this with a grain of salt. We can't confirm or deny whether those pressures happen unless you go watch the tape and count them up yourself, watch every individual snap. I'm not doing that, okay? But Sean Ryan is 46th in pressures allowed. He allowed 29 pressures. And again, PFF said his weakness was pass blocking. So this is the pro and con of Sean Ryan. A little bit better run blocker than he is pass blocker. Now, the market value is set at 6.6. We won't bore you with all the details, but you got 4 comp players, how they come up with this, to come up to a base calculated value of 3 years, 17.6 or 5.8. Now you go to the stats comparison. Tell me if you would be willing, because I hear some people saying they pay $10 million. I hear some people saying, yeah, $8 to $10 million, I'd pay it. I don't hate it, but for him to be a backup, if you're paying him $8 to $10 million, you're saying he's going to be your starting center. And I just don't. I think you can do better. I really do. And it's all about fixing the offensive line, right? Not just settling for what we can have here. So tell me if you would pay any of these 4 players. Tell me if you would pay them $10 million. Robert Hainsey, Luke Fortner, Connor McGovern, Dylan Raduns, if I'm saying that right. Because the reality is when you look at the percentage change, you take those 4 players and comp them to Sean Ryan, his median percentage change is a positive 8.49%. His average prime percentage change is a positive 15.2%. That's how they come up with the calculated value of 3 years, 19.7 million or 6.5 annually. Would you guys like any of those 4 players to be your starting center? My answer is No, right? So now the question becomes, all right, if you make the decision, you're only willing to bring Sean Ryan back as a backup center, right? Who's your starting center? Because we still got to answer the question. That's why I like the idea of Sean Ryan as a backup plan, and he could be your backup if you have an injury at the position. Go to Elton Jenkins and say, Elton, bub, you don't need us to tell you how you played last year, right? I mean, let's be realistic here. This wasn't the change that we expected. How much of a pay cut are you willing to take? Now, a good man never makes first offer in any negotiation, right? I'm sure you guys have heard that your whole life, right? Somebody says, well, what would you give me for this? Well, what will you take for it? Well, I need you to make an offer. Well, I need you to tell me what you want for it. You never make the first offer. So I'm sure they would respond the same way. Packers would come in extremely low. What number would you like Elton Jenkins back at? What I would like to see happen, me personally, if you decide to bring Elton Jenkins back as your starting center and give it another shot, you can free up $20 million if you just cut him outright. It's going to have to be an extremely low number. We're going to have to get that cap number down to where Sean Ryan and Elton Jenkins combined doesn't exceed what Elton Jenkins' cap number would have been at 24.8. And what I mean by that is probably 10 million range. If you go to Elton and say, man, how about we redo your deal, right? Last year, your contract, I believe it is. If it's not the last year, all the guaranteed money, the majority of the guaranteed money's gone after this year. I'm going to Elton and say 1 year, 10 million fully guaranteed. Take it or leave it. Right. And he's probably going to say no. So now the question becomes, what's the backup plan? Let's just take a quick look, a really, really fast look at potential draft picks. I know some people got really excited. They're going, oh, it's mock draft season. Not yet. Hold the line, people. Hold the line. All right. We're going to get to it. I promise. We're going to do so many mock drafts. We're going to lose subs over it. It happens every year. But hold the freaking line. Here are the top interior offensive linemen. Again, this doesn't mean they have center background. I'll tell you one in particular that popped to me. I'll just go ahead and say it. Jake Slaughter from Florida. He's the 83rd best prospect. Okay. Now you do the math. That suggests he's third round caliber. If you're just going off the consensus big board, our board will tell the whole story. I'm excited for that to come together next week. After the national championship, you're going to see that board, bang, it's going to come alive. And then, of course, immediately following the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine Bowl, which we'll give you live coverage here on the show, kind of give you updates along the way. That's going to add another element to it. And it's going to be officially draft season. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So Jake Slaughter is the one that comes to mind for me right off the bat. But here are the top interior offensive linemen, okay? It's going to be hard to say some of these names. Number 20 out of Penn State, I'm not even going to try to butcher the first name. Lone, L-O-A-N-E. He's ranked 20th. Emmanuel Pregnon, I think is how you say the name. He's ranked 32nd out of Oregon, okay? 64th is Connor Liu out of Auburn. 71st is Chase Basantis out of Texas A&M. Then you got Jake Slaughter at 83rd. Jake Slaughter is a center. And again, they just list him as interior offensive line because there's a lot of shuffling that goes on after these players are drafted. We'll be able to give you all that detail. One thing about our draft board over at patreon.com, you guys can join our Patreon community. Let me put the link up for you guys and gals here. Patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. We will highlight the guys who have proven they can play center will be highlighted in the blue in our interior offensive line. Why is that? On our draft board, tier 1 positions are in green. Edge, tackle, quarterback, right? Defensive tackle, 3 tech specifically. They'll be in green. And then your tier 2s, which are center, stack backer, safety, those will be highlighted in blue. So the board will really scream, okay, these 2 positions are more important than everything else, if that makes sense. Parker Brailsford from Alabama. And then, of course, you're outside of the top 100. Parker Brailsford is in the 87 spot. So that's the first glimpse, first look, if you will, at Sean Ryan and whether or not we should bring him back. I want to know, everybody in the comments, if you're watching this video back later, let us know which would be your choice. Would you want Sean Ryan to be your center at $10 million per, $6 million per, whatever the number is? Do you want to get Elton Jenkins back, but at a discounted rate? Maybe you say, I don't care if Elton Jenkins play for $5 million. I don't want him back as a center. Maybe that's your opinion, right? Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you know when we go live here in the future. All right, last topic, guys. Let's get into a little restructure talk. I'm going to try to keep this brief. Make a note here so I don't go way over. So restructure talk, this is going to carry over for a while, okay? And what I mean by that is we're going to talk about all the players you could potentially restructure and how much money you could free up. And we're going to talk about Rashawn Gary specifically and what you can free up there and whether or not it makes sense to try to bring him back on a lower deal or not. I guarantee you 95% of the chat right now will go, nope, don't want Gary back, don't want him back, don't want him back, don't want him back. Completely understand. You look at how he's been portrayed all over social media and everything, you would think he is a horrible pass rusher. You would think at a minimum he is a below average pass rusher. Well, if he's below average, our team of pass rushers is absolutely horrible. And I'm going to explain why. And not just pass rushers, but edge defenders. Now, again, I do not want him back at his $28 million cap hit. Ain't going to work. Ain't going to happen. But the reality is if you cut Rashawn Gary, you only free up $11 million. $11 million is a good chunk of money, right? But keep in mind, you freeing up that $11 million, you're losing a player that, believe it or not, has actually been pretty effective. Like Holmes says here, I want Gary back for the right price. That's exactly how I feel, Holmes. Just like with Elton Jenkins, just like with Sean Ryan. Not saying, nope, don't want him on my roster. Anybody who says that, they probably don't dig in and actually, look to make an educated decision. It's just emotions. Well, they didn't play good enough, get them off the team. Okay. Don't know if you're going to like what's behind them. I'll explain what I mean there. Okay. All right. So let's move it along here. Here are the players, okay, that are the highest cap hits for the 2026 NFL season. Okay. This ain't good. We got some breaking news in here. Donovan Schilling, thank you so much. I'm going to hit that. I'm going to try to star that and try to hit it at the end. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Donovan Schilling says, oh, no, Hafley's second interview with the Dolphins. It's heating up. So think about this, and we'll get right back to this. Adam Schefter's report comes out this morning that those three met for dinner. That's signaling that deal's getting done. That's probably the signal to Hafley that you have no shot at getting a head coaching job here in Green Bay. Go take the money in Miami is what it sounds like. We'll talk about it here. Maybe we'll talk about it here at the end of the show. We'll see. Shout out to iRock, become a new member. I know you've been a member here for a while and everything, man. Appreciate you re-up, and you are the man. All right, so here we go. Top cap hits for 2026. Jordan Love is $36.1 million. His dead cap, $98 million. No money to be had there, right? Jordan Love is your quarterback of the future. We know that he's the franchise QB. There's no way you're getting rid of him. I love the 36.1 against the cap, though, boys. You look around the league at some of these cap hits for these quarterbacks, my goodness gracious. I want to say Lamar Jackson is scheduled to – correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, guys, but I heard 50 or 70 million. Somebody said 71 million. I don't know if they had the numbers mixed up or not, but Jordan Love at 36.1 is really, really impressive. All right, here's Rashawn Gary, 28 million. The dead cap attached is 17 million. If you cut him, you free up $11 million towards the cap this year. Now, keep in mind, post-June 1 cuts, if there's multiple years left on these deals, you can actually free up more money, okay? There's ways that you can maneuver that and kind of split the dead cap up. They will do that on probably any of these players they decide to move on from. History says, right, we have precedent based around Goody liking to operate that way, okay? So, again, Rashawn Gary, $28 million, but 17 dead cap. You can free up $11 million with him. Aaron Banks, $24.8 million. Some people say, cut him, he's not good, I don't want him on the team. I understand. He didn't play well this year, but $24.8 million against the cap and a $20 million dead cap. What you got to ask yourself is it worth to not have Aaron Banks on the roster at all to just free up $4 million in cap? Maybe the answer is yes. For me, it's not. I'm doing a restructure there. I'm going to lower that cap number, give him a second shot this year, and then it makes way more sense to move on next year from it, if that makes sense. Now, when we say a restructure, it's not necessarily a pay cut. It's going to be converting some base salary and some roster bonus, things like that. Like he's got a $9.5 million roster bonus. They'll probably look to convert that to signing bonus and then kick that on the backside of the contract. Maybe even tack on avoidable year if you want to keep him. Now, if you just cut him outright, you want him off the books, whatever, you can free up a little bit more money than that going with a post-June cut. We know that. So you could free up a little bit, but again, you guys do your own research there. Elton Jenkins, $24.8 million, only 4.8 in dead cap, meaning you could free up $20 million for him. Micah Parsons, $19.2 million. Look at the dead cap, guys. $113 million dead cap. I think we're going to hold on to Mike, ain't we? So you can kind of see how they structure these. Again, Everybody told you that signing Micah Parsons was going to screw you in the cap, going to break oh my God, you're not going to be able to do anything. He's 19.2 against the cap this year. Now, you get 3 years down the road, we're going to be talking option bonuses and things like that, which that came into play with how Aaron Rodgers' contract was structured. We'll talk about that. Don't worry about a problem you don't have right now. Xavier McKinney, $19 million against the cap, 11.5 in dead cap. Trayvon Diggs, $15.5 million, but look at the dead cap, guys. The dead cap stayed in Dallas, right? Or the guaranteed stayed in Dallas. If you cut Trayvon Diggs, you free up $15 million like that. Now the question becomes, how bad do you want Trayvon Diggs on your roster? Do you want him at 15.5? To me, that seems a little high. They're probably going to look to give him a little bit more guaranteed money, convert some of the base salary, because that is 14.5 in base salary plus $1 million bonus per game. So the base salary, you're going to look to convert some of that to signing bonus. I would go to him and try to free up about $5 million. What I'd like to see, I'd like to say, hey man, let's lower this cap hit by $5 million. Would you take a $2.5 million pay cut for us to guarantee you $5 million, and then move that $5 million throughout the rest of the contract, or tack on avoidable year to free up cap space there? You got a little bit of maneuverability there. Here's the other thing. They got to look at him for 2 weeks, right? Maybe they looked up at Trayvon Diggs, and you got to check the dates too. I don't know when that money is guaranteed. Maybe they've got all the way up to when the season starts, but you could kind of get a look at him in the offseason program too, get a little bit better look and decide whether you want to keep him or not. But nonetheless, they may just want to cut him outright and say, hey, look, we didn't give up a draft pick. We just signed him off the scrap heap, off the waivers. We're going to cut him and free up 15.5 and move the heck on. That could be the case, right? Josh Jacobs. I'm hearing some people say that Josh Jacobs might be a cap casualty. Have y'all heard that? Let me know in the chat if you've heard anybody say that Josh Jacobs could be a cap casualty. I've heard like 2 or 3 people doing podcasts saying it, and I'm going, are we being serious? We don't want Josh Jacobs back? He's 14.6 against the cap. That's 4% of your cap, right? His dead cap is 6.2. So would you rather not have Josh Jacobs on the roster and have an extra 6.2 million in cap space? That bothered me. I was like, well, what are we doing? Yeah. Now, if you want to convert some salary to signing bonus and free up some cap space, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense, right? 14.6, you want to lower that number. But man, oh man, to say you're just going to cut and move on from Josh Jacobs outright to free up 6.2 million is just crazy. I want to see if anybody else said that. J. Cole said, I saw that too. Keep Jacobs. I don't know where that is coming from. Yeah, it really blew me away. It did. Chester Marco kind of talking about, with the cap hit there with Elton Jenkins, I'm sure. We knew in all caps Dahlman would be great. I don't feel comfortable, Chester, saying that I knew something, that I was 100% sure. But boy, we really, really, really liked the way he looked right in free agency, especially for the number that we thought we might be able to get him at. So that's something that, I don't know. I'm as close to what you're saying here. We knew that as any other topic we've talked about, because you guys can go back and watch it. We were very, very vocal about it, but we also had in the back of our mind, like somebody said, like Ron Sanville said, they expected Jenkins to be great at center, right? We were kind of hoping, okay, he's going to take a much bigger step at center, and you're going to feel way better about that situation with Elton having been around for a while. It didn't seem to work, right? Although Elton, when you looked at some of the other numbers, I've already closed it out. I want to say he was like 12th in pressures allowed. So he played significantly better than Sean Ryan. I think some people got a misconception that Sean Ryan played as good as Elton Jenkins. That wasn't the case, but with Elton Jenkins being at 24.8, let's be real, it ain't happening, right? With Josh Jacobs, I think we all agree in here. I don't see anybody saying cut Josh Jacobs, right? Oh, here we go. Nick actually says trade Jacobs to the Vikings for Aaron Jones. I hope you're kidding. Bub. I love you, Nick. No disrespect. I think you're kidding there. Sarcasm. When you got an IQ as low as mine, you don't pick up on sarcasm as good, especially through text. So, all right. Next on the list here, another one that's been talked about, Nate Hobbs, right? How do you guys feel about Nate Hobbs? On the surface, people say let him go, right? And I'm sure you guys have heard that. Here's the problem with just cutting Nate Hobbs outright, okay? Cap hits $13 million, dead cap $12 million. If you move on from Nate Hobbs, you're not even going to free up. You're going to free up a little less than $1 million. Nate Hobbs, to me, it's a slam dunk. Bring him back. He was banged up all year. Is one of those things that, you didn't get a chance for him to get a fair shake because of injuries. And I know the league's not fair. It is what it is. But for Nate Hobbs, I think what you're basically saying is, okay, we're only going to free up $1 million, but now you got all that time you invested in him is just a complete wash. He may come out into camp. You may draft 2 corners. You may pick up a corner in free agency and him not even start. I would rather him be on the roster, to be honest with you. Just to know, okay, he's got a year in the system. It's almost kind of like what we talked with Eric Stokes. Like Eric Stokes was cheeks when he was here. He had his rookie year, he looked good. And then he had a horrible injury, never really recovered from it completely. You cut him loose. You trained him. You gave 4 years to Eric Stokes in developing him. And then you decide to move on, and he went out this year, and he was one of the better cornerbacks in the league, right? What if Nate Hobbs does that? Now, again, post-June cut, you could free up some extra money there with Nate, I'm sure. But just on the surface, I like keeping Nate Hobbs personally. Devontae Wyatt, 12.9, that's fully guaranteed with the 5th-year option. Zach Tom, $12 million, 24.1, cap hit. Obviously, you know the deal there. Keyshawn's one. Keyshawn Nixon, $7.1 million against the cap. Dead cap's only 2.1. How do I say this in a tactful way? Watching him commit the stupid penalties and the tough guy persona all year long, the running the mouth on the field, the personal foul penalties, the jumping on the pile against the Bears. Going into the Bears game, remember, he was one of the guys that was vocal saying, yeah, we want Chicago. We want Chicago. Yeah, we want Chicago. He's running that mouth, right? Remember when Ben Johnson said, yeah, they got pretty loud up north. The Packer fans said, we didn't say anything. No. He was running his mouth. Hafley ran his mouth a little bit too. You guys remember, we'll be back here next week. He basically guaranteed a win. How'd that work out? I hate it when people do that. It's like, it's a catch-22. You get excited like, man, they're confident, but also it's like, damn, do we really want to do that? You know what I'm saying? But with Keyshawn, he ran that mouth all year, all the penalties, right? What's crazy is without the stupid personal foul penalties, I'm not sitting here saying Keyshawn's a horrible player. I think he's kind of an average to above average player. And at $7 million, I wouldn't be like crazy disappointed if they brought him back. But when you run that mouth before that Bears game, and now you got that clip that surfaced of him making a business decision and not trying to make that tackle at the goal line, I'm sorry, there's no place for someone like that on my team. I feel like Gary catches the hate that Keyshawn should catch, to be honest with you. And I know the fan base has been very, very vocal on that, but that's kind of the players that come into play here, right? Like when you talk about everyone on the list that you could potentially move on from, those are those guys, right? There's no one else on this list that really sticks out. Like if you want to change kicker, I get it. I know my wife does. Brandon McManus, 5.3 against the cap, 3.3 in dead cap. You can free up cap. To me, it's not about the 5.3 cap hit. It's about, do we have the right kicker? And last year I told everybody, don't expect him to kick over 90%. It's not going to happen, right? I said, give me 85%, and that's good enough. He fell all the way to 80%. He missed 3 kicks in the biggest game of the year. Got to find the answer at kicker. You got to find the answer, man. So, yeah. With all that being said, that's kind of how the contracts lay out. Now, let's talk Rashawn Gary real quick. Matter of fact, let's just make this an extra one here. If you guys are watching this video back later, let us know in the comments, what do you think about the Packers on the chopping block? Do you agree? Do you disagree with those? Maybe there's 1 or 2 players that we said we wanted back and you don't want them back. Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you know when we go live in the future. Let's talk Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary's on this list. All right. If I were to ask the chat right now, do you want Gary back? Yes or no? I guarantee you 90% of it will be no. My answer is yes at the right price. Now, what is that price? When you look at Gary's number, $28 million against the cap, okay, $17 million cap hit. In layman's terms, if you just cut it without a post-June cut, you can free up $11 million for Gary, okay? Now, you got to ask yourself, would you rather have $11 million in cap space or Rashawn Gary on your roster? That's what it comes down to. Many people look at the $28 million cap hit and go, nope, don't want him. That's not the question. The question is the money you free up Would you rather have that? It's a trade. You could trade for one or the other. Would you rather have 11 million in cap space extra, or would you rather have Rashawn Gary be on your roster? I think many people would say move on, right? So let's talk about what you're going to be losing if you do that. Rashawn Gary, $11 million in savings if he's cut. Okay. And again, post June inflates that number a little bit. So you guys, judge that however you want. Rashawn Gary was amongst all of your edge defenders this year. Many people say he didn't play a lot, right? He was second in snaps, only behind Micah Parsons with 616 snaps. The closest one to him was Kingsley Enagbare at 445. Okay. Next would be Lucas Van Ness at 248. Of course, Van Ness was banged up. All right. So he played the second most snaps of all edge defenders, only behind Micah Parsons. Now, next, he was second in the edge room in stops, only behind Micah Parsons. He had 34 stops. Okay. And I think Micah finished with 35 or 36. What's a stop? To me, when you're talking defensive line, it is a stat that determines how good, how effective, how consistent a player is at helping in the run game. A stop is when a player makes a tackle on a ball carrier, whether it's a catch or a run. So in this case, 99% of the tackles that the defensive line are going to make are going to be on a running back, someone running the football, quarterback, what have you. It's that player made a tackle and it resulted in a negative play in terms of EPA. Okay, meaning that's a win for the defense, and that's the player that made the win happen. That's the problem you end up having with like a Quay Walker is he's got a bunch of tackles, but when you look at his stop rate, it's not near as good as it needs to be, right? And then you couple in the passer rating when targeted, and he's nowhere near being a starting stack backer in a two-stack backer nickel defense. That's a tough look, right? So Gary, second in snaps. He was second in run stops, only behind Micah Parsons. All right, and the next one to him, by the way, is Enagbare at 25. Enagbare is set to be a free agent. We're going to break down his market value probably in the next day or two if we have time, depending on what news may or may not break. Okay, so Kingsley Enagbare was the closest one to Gary with 25 stops. Now, I will say this, only 9 behind Gary. Now let's look at the snap percentage there in terms of run D snaps, which is what we're talking about. 220 for Gary, 196 for Enagbare. So if you were to give Enagbare another however many snaps, I'm not doing the math, it would be 24 more snaps on run defense than Rashawn Gary. Would he get 9 more stops? He would not, based off of the current run stop percentage or run stop rate that he played. It doesn't mean Enagbare is a bad football player, but again, Rashawn Gary was better than Enagbare at rushing the passer. He was better than Enagbare at run stops. This is the reality, guys. This isn't Clayton's opinion. I was prepared the way everybody reacted this year, and you look at the cap hit to think, yeah, Gary, it's a no-brainer. Gary does not need to be on this roster. But when you go through and look at the numbers and look at what actually happened on the field, he was the second best edge defender, only behind Micah Parsons. If we had not traded for Micah Parsons, we would be looking up again this year and going, Rashawn Gary is your most effective pass rusher. He's your most effective edge defender. That's the reality. It's a hard thing to stomach. I get it, but it is again, we try facts over feelings here, right? If you see it, you got to say it. We're diving into what Rashawn Gary actually is. He's nowhere near the player he used to be. We would all agree. You've seen his play taper down after the ACL. He's never been really the same player. It is what it is. Let's talk about sacks. This is what gets edge defenders paid, right? So he's second in sacks, only behind Micah Parsons. I think I got the wrong stat up here. He's got 7.5 sacks. So I put the wrong. Yeah, so I didn't get the screen grab up there. He's got 7.5 sacks. The closest one to him at edge, I think, is 4. I already closed that out, so I apologize that. But that is true. He had 7.5 sacks, second only behind Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons obviously finishing first on the team. So I put the wrong stat up there. I apologize. Or wrong screen grab up there. I apologize. Pressures, because I know some people think, see pressures is more important than sacks. Apples to apples, sacks are way more important than pressures. But if you're going to give me a guy who's going to have a higher sack rate, but a significantly lower pressure rate, I want the guy with a significantly higher pressure rate over the guy with a significantly lower pressure rate. Because if you're getting to the quarterback more often, you're forcing them off their spot. That's going to result in negative plays way more often than just a guy who, let me put it this way. if you had me choose between this player who had 10 sacks or this player who had 7.5 in Gary's case, but this guy with 10 sacks only has an 8% pressure rate, and Gary had a 12% pressure rate, which is what you see here. I'm going with the guy with the higher pressure percentage because that's you're impacting more plays more consistently, if that makes sense. Now, if the number is 17 sacks to 7 sacks, but a higher, pressure percentage for the guy with less sacks, that's a different ballgame, right? That's now you got to really weigh in the weight of the sack and what it represents. But quarterback pressures, Rashawn Gary was second only to Micah Parsons, once again in the edge room, with 47 quarterback pressures, okay? The closest one to him was Kingsley Enagbare with 24. So essentially, Gary doubled the quarterback pressures that Kingsley Enagbare brought to the table, okay? Now, it's better to look at quarterback pressure percentage because that's more telling there, right? Because if someone's got more snaps, whatever. I'm sure some people heard that and go, yeah, but I bet it's because he got more snaps. Sure, but look at the quarterback pressure percentage. Gary, 12.1% quarterback pressure percentage. Kingsley Enagbare, 10.4. All right. Well, what about Lucas Van Ness? Lucas Van Ness, 11.2 quarterback pressure percentage. Rashawn Gary was 12.1. The reality of the situation, the only edge defender that's not named Micah Parsons that had a higher quarterback pressure percentage was Brenton Cox Jr. at 14.3%. The problem is Brenton Cox Jr. only played 42 snaps. So how low will that number go the closer he gets to 387 pass rush snaps of Rashawn Gary? It's going to go down, I think we would all agree. Does it dip below Gary? So I want to make sure I'm telling the entire story here, right? So with all that being said, there's not a statistic based around the edge defensive room, the defensive edge room, I should say, that suggests there's another pass rusher on this team playing edge other than Micah Parsons that's better than Rashawn Gary. That's the reality of the situation. That's the entire season. Rashawn Gary played in 16 games, okay? And that's the other thing that, like, as if that gets knocked, well, he played in a lot of games. That's why we talk percentages, right? And that's really what it comes down to. And also, is that a bad thing that he played in 16 games? What are we talking about? Like, that means, again, I know people don't like the rotation and him not playing more snaps. And I know right now the popular thing is to say that what Micah Parsons was saying in the locker room the other day about we need guys out there playing more snaps. If he's talking about Gary, he may be, but did he say Gary's name? No. So we're just speculating on that, right? Hell, he could have been talking about Stackbacker. He could have been talking about defensive line. He could have been, interior defensive line. He could have been talking about anything, Now, with all that being said, going back to the cap ramifications here, I'm not saying I want Gary back. I'm simply saying if you do not bring Gary back, what you're saying is $11 million in cap space. Again, it could be a little bit more with the post-June come. I continue to say that because somebody go get in the comments and go, you're not talking post-June. I got you. There's only so much time in a damn podcast that I can cover everything, okay? I don't mean to be Papaw Bailey over here, angry and irritated, but you'd be amazed at how many YouTube comments and messages I get of people coaching me on how to do the show. It's just, I always, the same response is this. I always come back and go, do your own. Hell, I'll check it out. I'm always looking for Packers content. Do your own pod. I'll go check it out. It's cool. But $11 million, you can free up $11 million, yes. But the problem is you're losing your second best pass rusher in the edge defensive edge room. There's no other way of looking at it. So if we're prepared for the production to go down, if we're prepared for the defense to take a little bit more of a dip without him, cool. We just got to be prepared to live with that, right? So again, if you went and if you went and signed Gary to a restructure, how much money can you free up? And I don't want to have this conversation without trying to give you guys a concrete number. For me, if Gary was willing to take a pay cut to lower his cap number to about $15 million, and I'm not talking about converting salary over, maybe a little bit. If you want to convert 2 or 3 million and make it guaranteed, I'm okay with that. But if we can get Gary's number from 28 million against the cap down to say 18 million, I'd be okay with bringing him back. I don't think he's going to do that. I don't. Now the Packers may see him more valuable than I'm seeing him, and you guys know I'm a big Rashawn Gary fan. I love how he's played the game. I think he's been a great Green Bay Packer. He's basically been our best pass rusher for how long now? So I really, really like Rashawn Gary. It was before Michael Parsons, of course. But this is what we were talking about 2 years ago when people were saying, get rid of Rashawn Gary, get rid of Rashawn Gary. And I'm going, his cap, he's too expensive. He's overpaid. His cap hit was like 10 million. What the hell are you talking? What are you looking at? Right. And then the next year it blimps a little bit, right? Whatever, 14, whatever the cap number was. He's too expensive. What are you talking about? Now's the time to have the conversation about he's too expensive. 28 million for the production we got from him last year. If his production is the same next year as it was this year, then it's not going to be worth it to have him on the hook for 28 million. But again, the true thing you're negotiating is the 11 million you can free up, if that makes sense. So that's how I feel about Rashawn Gary. I want to know, what does everybody think in the comments? How do you guys feel about Rashawn Gary? Let me know real quick. I want to get your all's take before we wrap up. Everybody in the comments, one word answer. Rashawn Gary. Or you could just say, Gary, keep him, Gary, cut him. Let me know. Are you either you want to keep him and try to restructure something, or you want to let him go? All right, nothing in between there. So restructure's on the table, or nope, I don't even want to talk restructure. I want to cut him loose. All right, let's see what we think here. You got to be kidding me, says cut. Got it, Buzz. So he's all about cutting. Got it. Kenneth Hammond says, Gary, keep for cheaper. So you're trying to work out a deal, right? Trying to work out the deal there. Again, I'm going to try to go with just the one word answers here, guys, because we don't have much time. We need to wrap up. Jamal says keep. All right, so he's about keeping and trying to restructure something. Got it. Double C494 says whatever Michael wants. I'm laughing, but that's a great point. If he was talking about Gary, now you can't go to Micah and go, hey, were you talking about Gary? If you want to ask him, hey, give us a little say in what you think here. I think that's a good thing. They didn't do that with Aaron enough, and I'd never understood why that was a problem. They just let Aaron have a little bit of say, Aaron Rodgers a little bit of say in here or there. Obviously, that got bad as time went on. Dave C says keep. All right, so keep and restructure. Keep in mind, the keeps don't mean keep at 28 million, right? Or, yeah, 28 million. I'm sure that I preference the question with keep, but you got to do some kind of restructure, right? All right, Ron says keep them. All right. Anthony, keep at the right price. That's the best way to answer it there, definitely. Let's see here. No serfdom. It's not a one-word answer. Probably shouldn't highlight. I'm going to do it anyway. Gary was an underachiever at Michigan and continues to underachieve in the NFL. It's funny you say that, because I've got a buddy who was a big Michigan insider, and as soon as they drafted Gary, I said, hey, man, the numbers don't look good here. What's up with this Gary guy? He went, he's a dog. He said, oh, dude, this guy was so selfless. You can go pull the tape and see him getting triple team blocked in the interior. He's more of an edge rusher is what he told me. He said, but they made him play inside. And, dude, there were teams allocating 3 and 4 players to him in the run game sometimes. He's a dog run defender. He's a good to very good pass rusher, and he's got a motor like nobody else. That's what he said. I feel like Gary lived up to that at this point, in my opinion. Last year kind of hit the wall a little bit. So we're going to agree to disagree there. But Corey says, where did Gary rank in the league? I mean, it depends on what stat you're looking at, right? Yeah, again, that's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up, Corey. I don't have time to look it up right now. But we were kind of comparing throughout our roster, right? I know it was through 6 weeks of the season, he was leading the league in sacks, but boy, we've seen it really fall off. He didn't get any more sacks after that the rest of the year, and that's a big problem, right? The quarterback pressure percentage at 12%. I don't have the numbers right now. However, because you got to filter out the minimum and everything, it takes some time to put that stuff together that we just did. But the common knowledge is if you can crack the 10% pressure mark, that's kind of considered good in the league. Like anybody over 10% pressure rate is okay. That's an effective pass rusher. When you dip under 10, it's Gary finished at 12. I don't know if that helps you or not. So Paige and Dr. Crutch, restructure is a must. So it's like only if we restructure, right? Nicole in the chat says cut. I like the scissors emoji too. That's creative. Lee Thunder says cut. Ray says cut. Nick McSwain says keep. Chester Marco says that was 3 words. Okay, I don't know what that means. Restructure says crutch. Chester Marco says keep. Jamal says we need the depth. That's what I'm looking at. It's kind of like for the right price. It's just like Sean Ryan. You look at Sean Ryan and go, are you willing to pay Sean Ryan $18 million to be your starting center? No. Would you pay him 6 to be a backup and step in if somebody gets hurt? Absolutely. Right. So that's kind of where we're at with Gary. Not necessarily 6 million, but you got it. So, all right. I think we hit a few there. I just want to get you guys involved a little bit, man. Donovan says, keep him. F it. I love it. Like nobody's, and I think we would all agree, nobody is answering that question feeling really, really passionate either way, right? I can understand the people that say just cut him and move on. It makes sense. This is the year to do it if you're gonna make the decision to move on. But for me personally, if you can get them at the right price, why not explore that, right? And these are the things that we're going to hear about here real soon. We're going to lay out a schedule for you guys, a date of like when these restructures have happened in the past, right? And kind of give you an idea of when we can expect all this stuff to kind of fall into place. But we're going to wrap it up right there, guys. If you're watching this back later, let us know in the comments. How do you feel about Rashawn Gary? Is it time to just move on? I don't even want to talk about restructure. Are you one of those that's, hey, man, I think it's worth it to try to keep him if you can restructure? Or is it one of those things that that maybe you're just like, you're indifferent? I don't know. It's not going to help us anyway, whatever. I like the response of what does Micah think? That now we're getting into interesting territory of asking Micah how he feels about certain players on the defense. I don't mean to push back too much, but I would be okay with it. I think you're stupid to not go to a player of Aaron Rodgers' caliber or Micah Parsons' caliber, or think of Reggie White back in the day, right? Imagine a general manager, and this is a shot at Goody because it's been known in the past he didn't do this, right? Imagine a general manager that would not want to know what Reggie White thinks about players on the defense. Hey man, what do you think about us keeping him? We got a decision to make on this guy right here, right? Santana Dotson, whoever it is, or trying to think here. Sean Jones. Imagine them going to Reggie White. You have the opportunity to go to Reggie White and go, hey man, what do you think about Sean Jones? We got a big decision to make here, and we can move some money around and keep that player. Reggie White, what do you think? Should we do that? Imagine the general manager that has the ego that says, I don't care what Reggie White thinks. This is my job. That's just stupid. I'm sorry to sound rude there, but that is just, I will never get on board with a general manager that operates not wanting to talk to a generational talent, which Micah Parsons is, or Aaron Rodgers was, and just at least get his opinion on something, whether you do it or not. Right. So anyway, that's just kind of how I feel. So, all right, guys, that's it. Oh, that's hilarious. I got to hit this one because this one was funny. Not So Cool says, so without Parsons, Gary wouldn't have 7.5 sacks. That is not true. That was the narrative through the first 5 or 6 weeks. And I pulled, I want to say 4 of his first 7.5 sacks, 4 of the 7.5 sacks. Micah Parsons was not even on the damn field because I called people out on that. They were screaming that in the beginning. Right. So yeah, that is just simply, that's, based off the sacks he got, that was not true. Now, if you want to say in the second half, sure, you can. Yeah, I think you can say that for anything. That to me, when you say stuff like that, that would be like saying Xavier McKinney, right? Remember all the interceptions he got last year? Xavier McKinney wouldn't have all those interceptions if it wasn't for Rashawn Gary. Are you willing to say that? Because if you're not willing to say that, you got to throw that out the window. So. Anyway, that's it, guys. We're going to get out of here. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. We're going to be back later if any kind of news breaks. I'm going to keep my eye on this Jeff Hafley story. We may go live if he gets hired and just talk about the trickle-down effect of now, do you promote from within? Do you go outside of the building? You guys know I've been very adamant with B-Flow. If you can get him in here, the problem is you're going to have to open a checkbook. We've been told in the past they were really, really cheap when it comes to the checkbook, right? Rob Domofsky went on a rant yesterday saying that was not the case, that Darren Rizzi didn't come here because he didn't want to come here, had nothing to do with money. We're fine. I had people messaging me yesterday. I won't say any names. I don't want to put them on blast and get anybody going after them. They messaged me going, hey, you do actually know that Tom Silverstein reported that before Justice Mosqueda. Therefore, is Rob saying Tom Silverstein was lying about that? And then there was an article that was in question of whether it was an opinion piece or I don't have time for it. That's what it comes down to. I'm trying to find time to carve out a 15-minute, 20-minute segment to get in here and talk ball with y'all, to put content on the channel. I don't have time to deep dive into whether or not it was an opinion piece or a factual piece. And I got to be honest with you, man, the fact that the media gets mad that we don't, as fans, take time to understand exactly what is in the article and this and that. It's like, Bob, it's 2026. It ain't 1993. 1993, I was combing through a black and white newspaper trying to find box score stats for baseball games. I'm not going to take the time to read a way longer worded article than it needs to be to get the details when I can literally just go, AI, what's the bullet points here? Let's get to the point. That's what people want nowadays. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just like any other profession, right? Over time, things are going to lose their value. They're going to lose their value, and people are not going to look at a certain service that was provided before, more as valuable as it is today. People have got stuff at their fingertips like this right now, like longer format videos like this. We've been going to hour 6, right? This is what I like better because I can actually have a conversation with people. You guys want to know why our YouTube channel is blowing up? Because we're clipping smaller videos because people don't want to watch an hour-long broadcast to get the information. That's just the reality. That has nothing to do. That's not a shot toward me or a shot toward a writer. That's the reality of the market. You know what I do when I go on YouTube? I'm not coming through going, where's a 2-hour sports show? I'm going, what's the latest on this? Okay, that guy has a pretty self-explanatory title. All right. Yeah, I can take 10 minutes and watch a video and get the latest on Matt LaFleur's contract situation. That's what I'm looking for. And I think that's what the majority of people are looking for. So there you go, Jay. Right, whether it's right or not, right? Short attention span. Absolutely. But as Donovan Schilling says, love it. OGs watching the whole thing with the muscle emoji. We're going to end it right there. Thank you, Donovan. Appreciate it, man. All right. You guys want to support what we do here at PTA? Join our Patreon group, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. $3 get you access to everything. Don't join that to expect to get world-breaking content, although I think everybody who's in there is very happy with it. This was something created because people said, how can I support the show? How can I support the show? That's the best way to do so. And I say it's the best way to do so because you're now be a part of our community over there with access to the chats and us just talking ball. And you're going to get all of our draft breakdown and all that as well. So appreciate everybody saying thank you in the chat. Thank you guys for jumping in and talking ball on short notice. We will be back as soon as news breaks. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack, go.
Here we go.
We're out.
Bye, guys.